At my wife's funeral, my son whispered, "I wish you had followed in your mother's footsteps." I stood up and said, "I'd rather do something else," and walked away. 30 minutes later, he panicked. 58 missed calls. "You won't believe what I did." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I stood beside the casket, my hand resting on polished mahogany that felt cold even through the white satin lining. Meredith looked peaceful. The mortician had done excellent work, better than I expected for what pancreatic cancer leaves behind. 2 years of watching her disappear, 1 cell at a time, 1 pound at a time, until the hospice bed became our entire world. The morphine drip, her final whispered words about being proud, about our life together, about how much she loved the garden we'd planted 30 years ago. Late afternoon light filtered through windows behind me, casting amber patterns across the funeral home's carpet. I could hear people shifting, preparing to leave. Mrs. Henderson from next door touched my shoulder. "Meredith fought so hard. 2 years. You never left her side." I nodded because speaking felt impossible. She squeezed my arm and moved toward the exit with the others. The crowd thinned. 20 people became 15, then 10, then just the stragglers who didn't know how to leave gracefully. "We should head to the house," someone said behind me. My house. The wake. I'd forgotten about that part. The drive passed in fragments. Trees, traffic lights, my hands on the steering wheel. Then I was standing in my own living room, surrounded by voices that seemed to come from underwater. People held paper plates with sandwich triangles and pasta salad. They spoke in those hushed tones reserved for the newly bereaved, voices full of careful sympathy. Amos stood in the corner near the bookshelf, Celeste beside him. They weren't talking to anyone else. Amos checked his watch, a Rolex I'd given him for his 30th birthday. Celeste scrolled through her phone, her thumb moving in quick flicks. She laughed suddenly, then caught herself, glancing around to see if anyone noticed. "Can we leave soon?" Her voice carried farther than she intended. "This is depressing. We're supposed to meet the Johnsons at 7. Amos shushed her, but not with any real conviction, just an automatic gesture. He checked his watch again. I moved through the rooms like a ghost in my own home, accepted condolences, nodded at stories about Meredith's kindness. Someone mentioned her volunteer work at the library. Another person recalled how she'd organized the neighborhood garden club. These strangers knew my wife better than my own son did. The crowd dwindled. 6 people. 4. 2. Then just family. I stood near the fireplace, staring at embers I didn't remember lighting. The mantelpiece held framed photographs. Our wedding day, Amos as a boy, vacations we'd taken when the world still made sense. Footsteps approached. Amos. He positioned himself between me and the door, blocking my view of the hallway. "Dad, we need to talk about the will." His voice carried no uncertainty, no grief, no acknowledgement that we'd just buried his mother. "Everything's still set up the way it was, right? You didn't change anything?" I turned slowly, looked at his face. Really looked. When had he become this stranger? This man who wore expensive cologne and impatience like matching accessories? "What did you just say?" The question came out quietly. "Dangerous." He shifted his weight, irritation flickering across his features. "Oh, come on. Don't play confused." He glanced at Celeste, who'd moved closer, forming a united front. "We've been patient. Living here, helping out, helping out." I repeated the words like I was testing them for meaning. "Yeah, helping. But let's be realistic." Amos crossed his arms. "Better if you'd followed Mom's path, old man. At least then we could finally live normally. We've been waiting long enough." Silence filled the room like water rising. I felt it in my chest, in my throat, behind my eyes. Not tears. Something colder, clearer. Celeste's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. I stepped forward. My hand had been gripping the mantelpiece. I hadn't noticed until I released it, until feeling returned to my fingers. I straightened my suit jacket, looked directly into Amos's eyes, held his gaze for 1 second. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll do something else instead. I walked past him, past Celeste, past the photographs on the wall that showed a family that had never actually existed, just a pleasant fiction I'd maintained through years of willful blindness, through the front door, down the driveway. My Mercedes sat where I'd parked it that morning, a lifetime ago. The engine started smoothly. German engineering. Reliable even when everything else crumbled. I backed out, shifted into drive, and headed toward the main road. The house disappeared in my rearview mirror. My phone buzzed in the center console. I picked it up at the first red light, held the power button until the screen went dark, and dropped it back into place. The Gulf Coast Highway stretched ahead, empty and dark, except for my headlights, cutting through the gathering dusk. I drove without destination, without thought, just following the white lines and the steady rhythm of the road beneath my tires. I drove for 2 hours, not thinking, just following the coastal highway until exhaustion forced me to stop. The Gulf Breeze Motor Lodge appeared like a mirage, neon sign flickering pink and blue against the darkness. Half the letters burned out, so it read, Gulbree Mo, or Low J. Nearly empty parking lot, single-story building that had probably looked modern in 1997. The clerk barely glanced up when I walked in. Young kid, maybe 20, absorbed in his phone. How many nights? Just one. I need somewhere quiet to think. He slid a registration card across the counter. I paid cash. He handed me a physical key attached to a green plastic diamond with 12 printed in white. Room 12. End of the row, farthest from the road. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. Single bed with a thin floral bedspread. Desk with a lamp and notepad bearing the motel's logo. Bathroom barely visible through a partially open door. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone on the nightstand where I'd placed it carefully, like it might detonate. Several minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 30. Time had become negotiable. I picked up the phone and held the power button. The screen illuminated, then exploded. 58 missed calls from Amos, 23 from Celeste. Text message notifications scrolled across the screen so fast I couldn't read them. The phone vibrated continuously in my hand. A desperate electronic heartbeat. I opened the messages. Started from the beginning. 6:47 p.m. Amos, Dad, where are you? This isn't funny. 7:23 p.m. Amos, you need to come back. We need to talk about Mom's arrangements. 7:45 p.m. Celeste, Norbert, please call us. We're worried. 8:15 p.m. Celeste, Norbert, Amos is really worried. Call us, please. 8:33 p.m. Amos, this is ridiculous. Answer your phone. 8:52 p.m. Amos, where the hell are you? 9:04 p.m. Amos, don't do anything stupid with the accounts. I know you're upset, but think clearly. I stopped scrolling, read that last message again. Don't do anything stupid with the accounts. Not, we're worried about you. Not, are you safe? Not, we love you, please come home. The accounts. I continued reading. 9:31 p.m. Celeste, we can work this out. Just come home and we'll discuss everything. 9:47 p.m. Amos, you're being childish? Mom just died and you're throwing a tantrum. 10:15 p.m. Celeste, Amos is driving around looking for you. Please respond. 10:43 p.m. Amos, fine, stay gone, but don't touch anything financial until we talk. My hands had stopped shaking. I felt perfectly calm, perfectly clear, like a surgeon standing over an operating table, seeing exactly where to make the first incision. I began scrolling backward through my memories instead of my phone. 8 years ago, Amos showing up with 3 suitcases and a story about a temporary setback. Lost his job at the dealership. Or was it that he quit? The details kept changing. Just until I get back on my feet, Dad. You and Mom have all this space. Temporary became permanent, became expected. Celeste appeared a year later. They married at City Hall. No ceremony, no celebration. We're keeping it simple, Amos explained. Celeste moved in without discussion. My house became their house, became our house, in every conversation, except on the deed. The credit cards, Celeste borrowing them for groceries, then gas, then shopping trips. I'll pay you back, Norbert. Things are just tight right now. Tight for 8 years. Meredith had mentioned it once, gently. Maybe we should set some boundaries. I dismissed her concern. They're family. Family helps each other. The roof repair, $4,200. I wrote the check. Same month, Amos bought a new truck. $40,000. Great deal, he'd said. Couldn't pass it up. Every utility bill, every property tax payment, every repair, every expense, every cost. Mine, while they contributed nothing but presence and expectation. Discuss? There's nothing to discuss anymore. You made your choice clear. I spoke to the empty room. My voice sounded different, harder, like it belonged to someone who'd finally woken up after years of sleepwalking. I took out my laptop from the car. I'd grabbed it without thinking when I'd packed an overnight bag I didn't remember packing. The motel Wi-Fi connected slowly. I opened a browser and began researching. Florida property law, tenant eviction procedures, estate planning, financial power of attorney, credit card fraud, adult-child exploitation. The notepad sat beside my laptop. I picked up the cheap ballpoint pen with the motel logo and began writing. Estate attorney, notary, bank manager, property deed documents, credit card statements going back 8 years, financial audit, change all passwords, contact credit bureaus, file police report if necessary. The list grew longer, more detailed. I organized information into categories: legal, financial, property, timeline. My phone buzzed. Another message from Amos. I didn't read it. Another from Celeste. Ignored. The phone kept buzzing, kept lighting up the dim room with each new notification. I turned it face down and continued working. Richard Kowalski. The name appeared in 3 different legal forms when I searched Aggressive Estate Attorney Sarasota. One review called him ruthless but effective. Another said, hire him before your opponent does. A third mentioned he specialized in contested family matters and asset protection. Perfect. At 2 in the morning, I lay back on the bed, fully clothed, staring at water stains on the ceiling that looked like continents from an atlas of nowhere. My phone buzzed twice more. I didn't move to check it. Morning light crept through thin motel curtains. I had 3 hours of sleep and a completely clear mind. First stop, the office of Richard Kowalski, the most ruthless estate attorney in Sarasota. 3 days passed in the rental apartment. Furnished, impersonal, temporary, everything I needed it to be. The place came with a 6-month lease I'd signed without hesitation. Downtown Sarasota, 8th floor, windows overlooking buildings I'd driven past for 30 years without really seeing. I unpacked a single suitcase filled with clothes from my office locker at the clinic. Nothing from the house, nothing that belonged to that life. My phone sat on the kitchen counter, screen dark. 63 missed calls in 3 days. I hadn't listened to a single voicemail. The appointment with Richard Kowalski was scheduled for 11. I arrived 20 minutes early, parked in the underground garage of his building, and rode the elevator to the 7th floor, carrying a leather portfolio stuffed with documents. The reception area had the quiet efficiency of expensive legal representation. Glass chrome, leather furniture that looked uncomfortable and probably cost more than most people's cars. A woman behind a curved desk looked up with a professional smile. Norbert Wallace, I have an 11 o'clock with Mr. Kowalski. He's expecting you. Would you care for coffee while you wait? No, thank you. She led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Sarasota Bay. The water glittered in morning sunlight. Beautiful. I hadn't noticed beauty in years. Richard Kowalski entered exactly at 11. Tall, gray hair, suit that probably cost what I used to spend on family vacations. He shook my hand once, firm grip, then gestured to the table. Let's see what we're working with. I spread the documents across polished wood. Property deed, current will dated 2015, marriage certificate, bank statements going back 2 years, everything organized in chronological order, labeled with sticky notes. Professional habits die hard. Kowalski examined each page with the focused attention of a surgeon studying an X-ray. He made notes on a yellow legal pad. After 15 minutes of silence, he looked up. The house is entirely in your name. Purchased in 1988, correct? Before my son was born. Your son has no legal claim to the property whatsoever. He tapped the deed with his pen. None. This is solely yours. My phone vibrated on the table. Amos calling. I declined it. Kowalski noticed but said nothing. The will leaves your entire estate to your son. He flipped through the pages. Written 10 years ago. Standard beneficiary designation. 10 years ago, I assumed family meant something. I was wrong. The words came out flat. Factual. How quickly can we change it? New will can be drafted within days. Executed within a week. Kowalski leaned back in his chair, studying me with the detached interest of someone who'd seen every variation of family dysfunction. More important question. Do you want to revoke their residence? I want them out. Legally, permanently. What's the process? Florida law requires 30-day written notice for residents without a lease agreement. After that period, if they refuse to leave, we file for formal eviction through the court system. It's clean, it's legal, it's final. He pulled a blank form from his briefcase. I can prepare the notice today. My phone vibrated again, this time a text message. I glanced at the screen, then read it aloud. You can't just throw us out. This is our home, too. Interesting word choice. Our home, not your home. Kowalski extended his hand. May I? I passed him the phone. He scrolled through several messages, his expression unchanging. Keep all of these. Don't delete anything. This harassment strengthens our position if this proceeds to court. He handed the phone back. Is there anything else you want to address? I need financial forensics. I pulled out the bank statements, pointed to highlighted sections I'd marked the previous night. I believe they've been accessing my accounts without proper authorization, taking more than what I consciously gave them. Kowalski took the statements, scanned the figures, nodded slowly. I recommend Susan Berg, forensic accountant, exceptionally thorough. He wrote a name and number on his notepad, tore off the sheet, and slid it across the table. She'll find every dollar they've stolen, and it is theft, Mr. Wallace, regardless of family relationship. For the next hour, we discussed specifics. Eviction timeline, will revision requirements, documentation needed for financial investigation. Kowalski explained everything in precise legal terminology. No sympathy, no judgment, just clean presentation of facts and options. I signed paperwork authorizing him to act as my attorney of record, to request complete bank records, to begin drafting a new will that would leave my estate to a combination of medical charities and the public library where Meredith had volunteered. One more thing. Kowalski stood, gathering his documents into a folder. You'll receive pushback, threats, emotional manipulation, possibly public confrontation. Don't respond. Don't engage. Every communication goes through me now. Understood? Understood. We shook hands at the door. I left with a folder of preliminary documents, a scheduled follow-up in 1 week, and Susan Berg's contact information burning a hole in my jacket pocket. The elevator descended slowly. I pulled out my phone, found Berg's number, and called before the doors opened to the parking garage. She answered on the second ring. Professional. Efficient. We scheduled a meeting for 2 days later. Kowalski's words echoed in my head as I drove back to the apartment. It's clean. It's legal. It's final. That was all I needed. Susan Berg's office occupied a small suite in a professional building near the hospital. Wall of filing cabinets, dual monitors showing cascading spreadsheets, certificates framed on walls proving credentials I'd already verified online. She was 45, sharp-eyed, wearing reading glasses on a chain around her neck. I'd brought 3 years of statements, bank accounts, credit cards, tax returns, everything I'd retrieved from my home office safe during a carefully timed visit. When Amos and Celeste were out, I'd watched the house from down the street until I saw them leave, then let myself in, grabbed what I needed, and left within 10 minutes. Berg spread the documents across her desk like a dealer arranging cards. Give me a minute. I sat in silence while she worked. Her fingers moved across keyboards, pulling up additional records from bank websites, where I'd provided access credentials. She made notes on a yellow pad, highlighted certain lines, cross-referenced dates. The clock on her wall ticked through 20 minutes before she spoke. This supplementary card you authorized in 2020? She turned one monitor so I could see the screen. It's been used exclusively at luxury retailers. Total, across 3 years, $47,000. The number felt both shocking and inevitable. I authorized it for groceries and household emergencies. Show me one grocery store charge. Berg scrolled through pages of transactions. There aren't any. It's all personal luxury items. She read from the screen. Designer boutique, $3,200. Jewelry store, $8,500. Day spa package, $1,400. High-end cosmetics, $900. Her voice remained neutral, clinical. Every single charge is luxury goods or services. No groceries, no household supplies, no emergencies. Celeste. The name tasted bitter. The card is in your name with her as authorized user. Legally, you're responsible for every dollar. Berg flipped to another spreadsheet. But this is more brazen. She highlighted a column of transfers. Each one showed money moving from our joint checking account, the one I'd set up years ago for household expenses, into an account with only Amos's name. The notes beside each transfer read like variations on a theme. Temporary loan, will repay. Short-term assistance, emergency funds, paying back next month. Your son has withdrawn $83,000 over 3 years, each one marked as a temporary loan. Berg looked at me over her reading glasses. Not one repayment. Not a single dollar returned. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. $47,000, $83,000. $130,000 total. Gone. Stolen. While I paid for everything else, mortgage, utilities, property taxes, insurance, repairs, while Meredith was dying and I was too exhausted to notice my accounts draining away. I want documentation for civil court. Every transaction, every unauthorized use, every fraudulent transfer. My voice came out steady despite the rage building behind my ribs. And I want every card canceled today. Remove his access to all accounts effective immediately. Berg nodded, already typing. This is textbook financial exploitation. You have grounds for full recovery, plus interest and legal fees. She printed page after page of highlighted transactions. I'll notify the banks this afternoon. All cards will be canceled by end of business. Account access revoked. I'll prepare a complete forensic report for your attorney within 48 hours. I photographed key pages with my phone. Documentation, evidence, proof that family was just another word for theft when you weren't paying attention. One more thing, Berg said as I gathered the papers. Change all your passwords, email, bank accounts, credit cards, everything. Use complex combinations they couldn't guess. Enable two-factor authentication on every account. I drove to the clinic for afternoon appointments. Tried to maintain normal professional routine. Saw patients. Reviewed x-rays. Discussed treatment options. Routine. Normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. At 4:30, between patients, the waiting room erupted. I heard shouting first. Then my receptionist's voice, strained and apologetic. Then Amos burst through the door to my examination area, face red, pointing his finger like a weapon. Dad, what the hell did you do? My card was declined. You blocked the accounts. I stood there in my white coat, stethoscope still around my neck from the previous patient. Through the open door, I could see the waiting room, 6 patients watching, expressions ranging from shock to embarrassment. You need to leave. This is a medical facility. You're throwing your own family on the street. His voice climbed higher, louder. What kind of father does that? After everything we've done for you. I picked up the phone on my desk, pressed the button for security, kept my voice calm, professional. I need someone to escort an individual from the building. He's disturbing patients. You can't do this. Amos moved closer, jabbing his finger toward my chest. You think you can just cut us off? Throw us out like garbage? We're family. Security arrived. Marcus, who'd worked the building for 5 years. He placed a hand on Amos's shoulder. Sir, you need to come with me. Take your hands off me. But Marcus was bigger, trained, and utterly calm. He guided Amos toward the door with professional efficiency. Amos shouted over his shoulder as he was escorted out. This isn't over. You'll regret this. Silence filled the examination area after the door closed. I could hear my own breathing, measured and controlled. Through the window to the waiting room, I saw patients shifting uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact with each other. I walked out to the reception desk. 6 faces looked up at me. I apologize for that disruption. It won't happen again. I turned to my receptionist. Who's next? An elderly woman stood slowly, using her cane for balance. As she walked past the reception desk, she stopped, looked directly at me with sharp eyes that had probably seen everything life had to offer. That was your son? She shook her head slowly. Speaking to you that way? After a funeral? She didn't wait for an answer, just continued into the examination room, leaving her words hanging in the air like an indictment. I treated the rest of my patients without further incident. Professional. Focused. But my mind kept returning to the numbers. $130,000. 3 years. While Meredith was dying. That night, I drafted the eviction notice with Kowalski over the phone. 30 days. The law was clear, and so was I. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter in the rental apartment, addressed to my own house, 1247 Osprey Lane, the place where I'd raised a son who became a stranger. In the morning, I would deliver it personally. Morning light filtered through blinds I still wasn't used to. The rental apartment felt temporary even after a week. Furniture that belonged to no one. Walls painted neutral beige. Appliances that worked without character. The manila envelope sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it the night before. 30-day eviction notice, prepared by Kowalski, reviewed by me, ready for delivery. I dressed in a dark suit, poured coffee I didn't finish, reviewed the documents one final time. Though I'd memorized every word, the drive to Kowalski's office took 12 minutes. I parked in the same underground garage, rode the same elevator, entered the same conference room. 3 folders waited on the table. 3 simultaneous strikes, Kowalski said without preamble. He opened each folder as he spoke. New will, eviction notice, civil suit for financial recovery. By week's end, they'll understand you're not negotiating. The new will was 32 pages. I read every paragraph. Everything to the Meredith Wallace Medical Foundation, a charitable organization Kowalski had helped establish specifically for this purpose. The foundation would provide orthopedic care for underprivileged children, free surgeries, free follow-up care, free physical therapy. Everything Meredith would have wanted. Everything that mattered. Nothing to Amos. 2 witnesses waited in the reception area, paralegals from Kowalski's firm. They entered, watched me sign, added their signatures below mine. The whole process took 4 minutes. 4 minutes to erase a son from inheritance. 4 minutes to choose charity over blood. The foundation will help children who actually need it, I said, handing the pen back to Kowalski. That's the legacy Meredith would want. He filed the document in his safe. Permanent. Irreversible without my explicit instruction. The eviction notice next. Do you want a process server to deliver it, or I'll do it myself? Kowalski studied me for a moment and then nodded. Understood. I drove to the house for the first time since the funeral. Osprey Lane looked exactly the same. Oak trees lining the street.